number 5 for me is The Shape of Water. Guillermo del Toro never ceases to amaze me when it comes to visual aspects of films, but I've never connected with characters. I think the closest I ever came to it was actually Ron Perlman's portrayal of Hellboy, because he's interesting and flawed and vulnerable and funny and charming. And for the most part, Del Toro has never connected with me other than his visuals, which I think are fascinating. And him as a director having so much aesthetic and so much to do with creature design and not just relying on someone else, actually being a part of storyboarding and concept art. Which is why you see like a common sort of look through a lot of sort of the creatures and things that he creates. You can kind of see where his strengths lie. Until this film. This film, though it's beautiful and it's the best lit film of the year in my opinion, it's just so colorful and gorgeous. This movie to me is all about the characters and it's about the story. And that's the first time I can ever say that about a Del Toro film. I love Sally Hawkins to pieces in this film. I love Richard Jenkins. He is so good. It's hard to even say who the best is in this movie. Octavia Spencer's good, but she's given kind of just the, hey, I'm on the side type of person. Yeah, and I love Doug Jones in this movie. He doesn't have to say a fucking word. And everything about his character and his movements and the way that they use... I'm just going to call it Abe Sapien, but even though it's probably Abe Sapien Sr. Everything about his movements, just the fact that a mute... and a monster, a mythological monster, don't speak to each other, and they have the most intense, beautiful love relationship blossom. Having that come from a movie that Guillermo del Toro directed is mind-boggling to me. And I felt myself choking up in the film because of its beauty, because of how unbelievably beautiful certain sequences in this movie are. I just felt happy to be watching this movie, and the fact that this is cinema. This is a movie right now that's getting high praise, and it should get high praise because it's fucking incredible in every way. It almost got even closer. I didn't get a chance to see it a second time. I think the reason it didn't get higher is because there's some predictability in the story. There's some characters whose motivations you know right from the beginning. You know exactly where they're going. Michael Shannon's awesome in this movie, but I kind of knew exactly what was going to play out and how everything was going to end with his character. He's awesome too, though. There's so many cool things about it, and there's some rushed elements of the first half of when Sally Hawkins' character, the mute, finally gets to know Abe Sapien Sr. Does feel a little bit rushed, but when you figure out that the second half goes in a place that the trailers didn't show you, you kind of understand why, and that's more of the blossom of the relationship. So I love The Shape of Water. Number 4 for me is Logan. Logan is one of the best comic book movies ever made. It's my favorite X-Men film. It's my favorite Hugh Jackman performance. It's my favorite Patrick Stewart performance. I love watching this crotchety old man, Professor X, who's senile. Excellent performances, some really good sequences and acting of just tenderness between the two characters. And the fact that Mangold got another chance from what was sort of a stale outing with the Wolverine, it wasn't a bad movie. It wasn't hokey. It was just kind of boring and nothing really happened. Mangold said, let me play to my strengths. What I do best is Westerns and Western themes. And Logan is just smeared with like Western themes. And because it's the swan song of both of these characters, they strayed so far away from the comics, because you can't have Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye show up in this, which is what is a lot of Old Man Logan stuff. They just created their own story, and like you had said, they decide to kind of deviate completely by saying, hey, what you knew about all those other movies, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't. They all became folklore. They started making comics about it, and Wolverine just kind of goes, yeah, take it or leave it, man. Whatever you think is true is what's true. And he's pretty much telling us that. It's that movie saying, the X-Men universe is so fucking muddled at this point, continuity-wise, that just let this be its own thing, and whatever you want to have it lead up to, like, you can do that yourself. So Logan is a fantastic, brilliant R-rated genre comic book movie that I thought was executed perfectly. I have some issues with the villains. I have some issues with the final act. But there's so many strengths in this movie, and it was such a great movie for Hugh Jackman to say adios to a 17-year-long character that I don't think anyone has ever played a character longer and in more films ever. So number 4, Logan for me. I fucking loved Logan. Okay, so now we're moving into our number 3 and number 2 favorite films of 2017. Now, we have some awards to give out for these movies. So there are two films that place in our third place bracket win the VHS award.
All right. Well, that third place winner that's going to get the VHS award for me is 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. This was just one of the best screenplays of the year, one of the funniest movies of the year, also one of the most emotional experiences for me. There's scenes in this movie that scenes with Woody Harrelson that basically not just brought a tear to my eye, but actually had me sobbing in the theater, like audible, embarrassingly sobbing. I was sniffling, and everyone around me is like, that guy's freaking bawling his head off over there. But it was just a powerful movie, a funny movie, a brutal movie. We said that in our other review. What's his name? Martin McDonagh's style in this film. It's just he finds the right tone to be able to tackle this hard subject matter, but still keep it funny and keep you engaged. These characters are just so interesting. They're so flawed, but also you love these characters as well, even with all their rough edges. Frances McDormand and Sam Rockwell, two of the best performances, hands down, two of the best performances of the year. Woody Harrelson is excellent. All of the other supporting cast is great. All these characters are just so well realized on screen. There aren't many flaws. There's very little to not like about this movie. I think there's a few scenes that kind of pile on the guilt onto our lead character that are unnecessary. And that's kind of what hurt this movie to drop it down a little bit. But it's kind of for what the story they wanted to tell, the characters they're presenting on screen, it's kind of a perfect movie.
And the number 2 winners of our second place is the winner of a mini DV tape.
All right. Well, Guillermo del Toro can shoot his next film on this mini DV tape because my number 2 pick is Shape of Water. Yeah, just a great film. So visually interesting, great use of visual storytelling, great cast. I mean, maybe 3 Billboards has an excellent cast. There's a lot of films this year that have not just 1 or 2 great performances, but the supporting cast is just as strong. Yeah. But this one really stands out as I think the supporting cast really has to support the lead in the film. She's a mute, and so they do a lot of the talking for her and the communication and stuff. But they're also good. Richard Jenkins, he's just excellent in this movie. Good. Such an interesting, well-written character. And that was kind of a point that you were making, was we don't think of Guillermo del Toro. Yes, he's a visual filmmaker, but we don't think of him as a great screenwriter. This is a great screenplay. It is. Yeah. His best movie, hands down, and the most accessible. I agree with you. You don't always get to love his characters or find them that interesting. It's more of a spectacle with his films. This one gives you both. There is that element of spectacle to this film. It's a wonderful fantasy tale. I love all of the artistic side, technical side of this film. Cinematography is excellent. Another interesting score. The score has this kind of fun, playful Parisian sound to it. You mentioned it's kind of like Amélie. And
yeah, it feels like they're in France. Yeah.
Yeah, it really sets up the playful tone that the movie can have. And I think this movie balances a lot of different tones where it's romantic, can be kind of frightening. The dialogue is great. It can be entertaining and funny when it needs to be.
It's very funny.
The movie can be very graphic when it needs to be. The movie can be explicit when it needs to be. The movie is funny and touching when it needs to be. I think it really works on a lot of different levels, and I think it was just so creative the way it's shot. There's a lot of really cool transitions and edits in the film.
Oh man,
I think he's definitely the best villain of the year. I know people want to throw Pennywise is the best villain. He doesn't do anything. This guy's a fucking great villain in this movie. Shape of Water, it does have its problems. As you pointed out, it's kind of predictable at times. There's some rushed elements of it, and that's why things like 3 Billboards and Shape of Water were kind of I don't know which one I want to go with. But there's just something about kind of the way this story is told. The setup of the story is very efficient. The first couple scenes really let you know everything you need to know about this lead character and the world that she's living in and her routine. It was just one of the most entertaining movies of the year for me. I just had such a blast watching this movie, and it's also very artistic. I think it's a nice throwback to films of the 50s, monster movies that we're familiar with. You know, it has shades of like Frankenstein with the misunderstood monster element. It even felt kind of like an 80s movie to me at times, where it's got like, feels like E.T. a little bit, or like Goonies with kind of the heist adventure elements that the film has. It was a very classic Hollywood kind of film for me, and I always love that kind. You can do innovative, cool, new stuff, but just tell a good story in a classic way, and I think that's what Guillermo del Toro did with this one.
And nothing beats a guy in a suit if the suit's done right.
100%.
You know, I mean, this movie wouldn't have been what it was if that was a CGI character.
100%.
I mean, it just wouldn't have. I think this. I'm just going to piggyback on you, because this is Guillermo del Toro completely untouched. You said something just now that reminded me. You could stumble into this movie with a mom with her kids and see a scene that is beautiful and is like a Mary Poppins fantasy, and then all of a sudden someone's arm gets chopped off and it's gruesome and amazing and gory. And I think that's just unleashed Guillermo, like this potential of the script and doing what he does best with it, and holding back from so much excess too.
Yes, that he's done in other films.
Yeah, that's what makes it his best film.
Yeah.
You know?
100%. So we're moving on to Ben's number 3, which is going to be the winner of this wonderful VHS right here.
Okay, my number 3 is Dunkirk, because Christopher Nolan's a fucking master at technical filmmaking. Again, he's had that Del Toro dilemma of sometimes not allowing us to completely connect with certain characters, but I don't think that's been the case with everything he's done. Certainly early on in his career, I connected with almost all of his characters, Al Pacino in particular, in Insomnia. I know a lot of people don't even know that's a Christopher Nolan movie, but this film is his first attempt at a war movie, and he did exactly what I hoped he would do and pretty much knew he would do. He didn't make a war film. He made a Christopher Nolan film based on a war situation, and that's what I wanted to see. Like you said, the 3 separate narratives that don't come into play and let you know that it's a nonlinear structure tell a little bit into the film. And everything about, like you said, the aerial shots, just the way they're done, and the ground, the situation happening on the ground, all mostly done with sound design, large groups of people and close-ups of people's faces. This film had me from the very first shot, where a character who you just see his back for the first 5 minutes as he's running from something, and just the harsh punch of his sound design and everything he does. The sound is amped up to 11 in every single thing he does, where there's no way to not get sucked in right away unless you just have a hard time hearing or seeing, because his movies are eye candy. And I agree with you that the character development is kind of non-existent, with the exception of some of the characters on the boats, because they have a little bit more time where they're just like, you know, contemplating things, and Cillian Murphy's doing anything he can to not have to get back to that situation. So you learn that he's a big pussy, and that's pretty much it. But that's the point Christopher Nolan was doing. He's not giving you. He was so respectful to that couple of days that he didn't even want to create a fictional character or somebody that you're supposed to care about that wasn't real. He just gave you that overall situation. You could tell he was being very careful about how he did that too, about just showing big groups of people. I mean, we followed a couple characters as they got into the boat and got some toast and jam and got to relax for 2 seconds before the boat goes down. Those scenes are amazing, and for a movie without a lot of dialogue, you're just completely on edge and completely a nervous wreck during this movie, because he puts you right on the fucking beach of this movie. And I'm with you. It's the best movie he's done probably since 2008. But yeah, what a great achievement. And I know there's this big running gag that, Dunkirk's is not gonna get Best Picture. Look, who gives a shit about that discussion? See movies for what they are, and enjoy the fact that you live in a world where Christopher Nolan is making movies in it, because his movies are usually amazing in one way, shape, or form. And for Dunkirk, it's an incredible war movie. I'd said this in our original review. If the idiots that made Pearl Harbor back in 2001 gave even a shred of respect the way Nolan did to this day, as they shit all over Pearl Harbor and everybody involved and make it a big spectacle explosion movie, then maybe that movie would have been worth a damn. But Christopher Nolan respects his country and did it the right way and didn't exploit it, just made a beautiful, touching, telling story about that event. So number 2 for me, which is going to win the mini DV tape, is Wind River. I love this movie. I echo everything that John said. We did a great long in-depth review of this one when it came out. I think we both fell in love with it immediately. It did give us that Hell or High Water feel because of that just rock solid tight script. My favorite Jeremy Renner performance to date. They really let him shine and become the character and not hold back like he seems to have done in the past. Gil Birmingham and Graham Greene. It's so awesome to see those guys. It's so awesome to see those guys in a movie together because they're both really standout Native American actors. I thought Elizabeth Olsen was quite good, especially in the second half. But Wind River is just a fucking intense film that takes all these different turns. This is stuff we said in our review already, but it really did take a lot of turns. And like you said, you never know if someone's head just going to get lopped off at some time because that's how great Taylor Sheridan's scripts are. And he directed this, and he did a good job. He's clearly screenwriting is his highest strength right now, but for a first feature film, it's my second favorite film of the year, so obviously he did something right. Yeah, I think it's not getting any love right now. It's completely forgot about, and it's one of the, if anything, screenplay.
You know why?
Should be there.
It's got Weinstein's name on it.
Oh. Kiss of Death. It's too bad because earlier in the year we were saying Jeremy Renner was kind of the front runner for Best Actor, and he is nowhere in the conversation now. But for me, number 2, Wind River. Fucking awesome movie. Loved it.
We're getting to what you've all been salivating and waiting to hear about.
And it's
that time. Whoa. What fuck? Oh my god! They're getting in! Oh my god!
So what are we doing now, John? Are we getting into the biggest piles of shit of 2017?
Can't be avoided. They're here. They're crashing down on us.
Cheers to
the worst movies of 2017.
50 Shades of Everything. Okay, we're going to start with our dishonorable mentions of 2017. What do you have for us, dare I ask, John?
So my first dishonorable mention is going to go to Alien Covenant. Ridley Scott just not showing up to work when he made this fucking movie. I do not understand what's going on. This is not a Ridley Scott movie by any measure. It's the worst Alien movie ever. Super disappointed. Just kind of unforgivable that this actually has Ridley Scott's name and the name Alien on it. It was just, man, I just had such a tough time watching this movie. Sorry, I'm trying to be creative with my fun little face hugger here, but yeah, this is how I feel about this movie. I would rather watch it like this,
face humper,
getting my face fucked and impregnated, than have to fucking call this canon Alien movie.
I'm gonna call this movie the fact that Ridley Scott is in his 80s, and he's just. That's it.
All the money in the world wasn't terrible.
Yeah,
though.
but it's not that. It's that when you reach a certain point and you realize that your milestone and your first thing that kind of puts you on the map, there's still a craving for, and you don't want anybody else making that shit.
George Lucas style.
So then you try to go back in there and you fuck it all up because of ego and because of age. It almost made mine because it's fucking terrible. If we were doing the biggest disappointments of the year, that would be the biggest disappointment.
And it really is just the biggest disappointment. I haven't seen a ton of the worst, the really trashy films that I normally get around to seeing at this point. So, you know, there's still some things in the film that aren't the worst filmmaking ever put to screen, but definitely my biggest disappointment, so I'm putting it on the honorable mentions terrible list. I'm going to put this as a combo because we're doing 2 honorable mentions at the end here. Resident Evil 10, whatever number they're on by now, and Underworld 14. Both of those movies together, they're just interchangeably bad. Just terrible. I don't understand how these franchises are still going, how they're not straight to video at this point. Just bad movies.
So those 2 are a tie.
Yeah.
So you get to you throw them both on there. That's fair enough because they're interchangeable garbage.
Yes.
So I totally agree with you on that. Some of my honorable mentions, I can't get around. I hated Alien Covenant too, but it just didn't make it because there's movies that are just piles of shit from everything, every element of it, the cast, the filmmaking, the writing, and the fact that they made Rings, which is essentially another Ring movie, which was originally, I think, a Japanese film, and then they did a Naomi Watts version in 2001 that was very scary.
They consider this one part 3. It is part 3.
It's part 3, and it is so fucking horrible.
I saw it.
I mean, it's I get it. It's like now it's like let's use phones and let's use the internet and the way, I mean, the writers that came up with this trash, like let's take it from a VHS and make it just like an MP4 or something like that.
That's right.
It's so laughably fucking stupid and awful, and the acting is bad. And what the hell Vincent D'Onofrio is doing in this movie, I have no idea, but I guess paychecks are paychecks.
Yep, everybody needs one.
And he's not getting any younger or slimmer, and all he has to do is sit there in a chair and do a couple of scenes. But yeah, that movie's painful, so Rings, dishonorable mention. This one, the only reason it's not the worst movie of the year is because I just am going to call it a gigantic misfire from an otherwise excellent director, and that's Mother. Because Mother literally has nothing about it that will ever make me want to revisit it. You and I have never been harsher on a film in 2 years of doing this. And rightfully so, and I don't take back any of the things I said about it. But at the end of the day, there are films on my list, my top 3 worst, that just are so incompetently made that you can't deny that. It's like, yes, it's Aronofsky. He made an obnoxious, pretentious, ego-driven piece of shit that was confusing, and I think it misfired from what he wanted it to be. And but there's just movies that are so much poorly made than Mother. So Mother gets that other honorable mention, but it fucking sucks, and I hate it.
This movie sucks.
So we're getting into the bottom 3.
The bottom 3.
We've got some whatever
awesome
the fuck
trophies,
those are.
participation trophies for these crappy movies.
So let's hit your number. Oh, sorry.
Well, jumping right off of what you were saying, my number 3 worst film of the year is Mother. Motherfucking piece of shit. God, I hated this movie. Check out our full review to see how much we hated this movie. But
I think the first line we say, you'll get the whole gist of it.
Yeah.
This movie sucks.
But I agree with everything you said. It is kind of a rare misfire for Aronofsky. He is a director I respect, and that's kind of what made this, maybe much like my review of Alien, it's kind of a disappointment.
Yeah.
It's somebody you respect and you think of highly, and they can do a lot better than this. But it was a really hard film to sit through. The movie is trying to get you to leave the movie, and I think there were people who left our screening of it.
Oh, there were.
But we made it to the end, and now it's making it onto the worst of list. What a piece of shit.
I agree.
What's your number 3 worst movie?
My number 3 worst movie of the year is Snatched. You probably don't know what movie that is because no one saw it. It was like an early summer release that was supposed to be a vehicle with 2 of the most charismatic, funny, blonde chicks in the business today. Stretch-faced Goldie Hawn and Amy Schumer, who I otherwise pretty much love and think she's great. Problem with this movie is she didn't write it. She wrote Trainwreck. That's why it worked. That's why her delivery was good. This movie had no jokes, and the jokes they attempted fell flat. It was racist. It was mean-spirited. It was all over the map. It was unfocused. It felt like a 1987 buddy cop adventure flop that did not work in any way. Goldie Hawn.
Collision Course?
Yeah, it's like Pat Morita and Jay Leno in the jungle. Yeah. No, it's just literally, there's not an element of this movie that works. Like, the setup, the mother-daughter relationship, it's not believable. I don't care about it. Goldie Hawn still has charisma, but her face is so peeled back that you literally can't even tell emotion from a physical standpoint anymore.
You need to get some CGI involved, maybe.
Yeah, they might. I mean, there's a scene where they're like flying. They're in one hand, like Amy Schumer thinks that she's about to have sex with this really good-looking South American dude. So they show her wiping her vagina with a paper towel in the bathroom. 5 minutes later, she's swinging on a vine with her old mom on her back. There's a scene where Amy Schumer kills somebody with a gun, and it's played for laughs. She's supposed to just be this regular person, and she murders somebody with a gun. And it's like, oh, throw down the gun. Oh, my God, hijinks. It's like, wow, like... Today is a lot more sensitive than the 80s. You can't just shoot. You have your main character murder someone with a gun and then just go off and not care about that and never make mention of it again. It doesn't hurt her personality. Yeah, whatever. Snatch is fucking crap.
Here you go, Snatch. Drink it up. My number 2 worst movie of the year. Last year's number 1 worst movie was 50 Shades of Black. And this year, we don't have a Wayans Brothers movie to tarnish the list, but we do have the film that inspired 50 Shades of Black, or the film series that did, which is 50 Shades Darker this time. I don't even have anything to say about this movie. It's just terrible schlock. You know, why I get that it's being made for the female audience, or that the series of books is this tabloid shit that women like to read on the beach or whatever, or masturbate to. I don't know what the fuck these books are for. But I'm having trouble sitting through these movies. And I know there's another one coming this year that I'm going to have to sit through. Finally, that'll be the last one at least. So yeah, just shit filmmaking, terrible performances, no chemistry between these leads that are supposed to be, you know, romantically involved. Ridiculous subplots coming out of left and right. I really don't remember the movie all that much, but it was a major piece of shit. So 50 Shades Darker gets participation trophy.
Here's to the dead behind the eyes actor that plays the lead guy.
Seriously.
Yeah. Number 2 for me is The Mummy. Should have been number 1, but you'll know why when I tell number 1. The Mummy, I couldn't tell you what it was about. Tom Cruise is in it, and he's supposedly doing action stunts. And there's a very long sequence, one of which they show the entire thing in the trailer of the plane crashing. The rest of the movie is how do we set up this shared universe of dark monsters. No one cares anymore about the filmmaker does not care anymore about what's going on in the movie he's making after the first 30 minutes. It's all about stems and how do we create this universe. And then when it gets to its inevitable quote-unquote climax, you don't really know how anybody got where they're at or what's happening or why it's happening. It just kind of falls apart. Well, falls apart. I mean, the whole movie's a big fucking mess, but
it unravels.
Yeah, that movie, if they had actually tried to just make a good movie and not worry about where it's supposed to go, then who knows? But for me, still the reigning champion of the Mummy movies is the Brendan Fraser 1999 one. And I thought maybe this one had a chance, but as soon as I started watching this movie, I knew. They wanted someone to just push pages across on screen so we can set up fucking Russell Crowe as Dr. Jekyll and Pepper and all these other stupid things and forget the fact that this is... I mean, and just the decision making, even if the story wasn't trying to pepper in all those other elements, it still sucked, and the writing was still terrible. So I'm not going to say it could have been good if they weren't trying to start this universe. It was still a piece of shit, and Tom Cruise knows it. He's just giving that money to the Scientology church, and he's happy. All
right, so my worst film of the year. Fuck, this filmmaker sucks. He just puts out shit after shit every movie. And this is the 5th movie in this goddamn series, and every single one of them is a giant mess. Transformers. I don't even know what the fucking subtitle of it is. Transformers fucking...
The Last Jedi.
Yeah, the last film in the series, I sure hope. But I think there's a Bumblebee movie coming out that we're going to have to bumble through on that piece of shit. So, yeah, I mean, I don't need to say much about it. If anyone's watched any Transformers movie, you know what you're getting into. There's just so incoherent in terms of storytelling. The fucking acting is just cheesy as hell. You've got great Oscar-nominated actors like Frances McDormand. I don't think she's in this one, but I mean, in the series you've had...
Doesn't this one have like fucking Anthony Hopkins?
This one's got Anthony Hopkins.
Okay, so time for my number 1.
Your worst movie.
Biggest
What's
piece
it gonna
of
be?
shit of 2017 is a movie called Wish Upon. When you go to film school, there's always one person in your class, no matter what class it is, whether it's editing or cinematography or whatever, that just doesn't fit, that shouldn't be there. But for some reason, they saw Pulp Fiction 80 million times, so they want to be a filmmaker. But you know they don't have what it takes. And there's just something about them. So you can't wait till the end of the semester where you can see the piece of turd that they produced when everyone has to show their final film of the semester. That is what Wish Upon is. This movie was made by a second grader. In the middle of scenes, the director forgot what was happening in the scene. And there's actually actors in the background who quit acting and are just moving along as if they're on set at the craft service table that are caught on camera. They're in the background, no longer acting in the scene. This chick in high school, it's like a YA, PG-13, watered-down, wannabe horror movie. She finds her dad, played by Ryan Phillippe, how the mighty have fallen, I guess, is like a dumpster diver who's like down on his luck. So he finds this box in the dumpster and gives it to his daughter for her birthday, because nothing impresses a 16-year-old girl more than something you found in the trash, right? So she finds out that basically it grants her wishes, and every time she wishes for something, it kills somebody. This chick is supposed to be the one we're rooting for, and even when she finds out that it's killing people, she still continues to use it.
Best friend is caught on that every time she makes wishes, it's killing people. So the boyfriend's kind of like, I don't know, I think you should get rid of the box. Best friend's like, you need to get rid of the box, give it to me, because I don't trust you. So they have this little tussle. She just falls down this flight of stairs, and what looks to be a snap of her neck when she finally lands and her body lays motionless. The main girl and the boyfriend just continue to have their conversation, walk down the stairs and walk right past her body, having an argument that she doesn't, you don't.
They forgot that they just killed this person.
Their best friend.
And they never make and this isn't intentional. This is just them forgetting about the scene altogether, because it just moves on to them having an argument in the hallways, and then he's like, and then the bell rings, he's like, well, I got to get to class. There's somebody laying on the staircase that just broke their neck.
It's supposed to be that
no.
There was a wish to bring her back or something?
No, it's just sloppy filmmaking. It's
wow.
just, they just forgot that they threw their friend down the stairs and broke her neck. This movie sucks, man. Like, so that's my worst movie of the year. Okay, so that was rough. Those were our worst picks of 2017. Thank God we're out of that crazy vortex of awfulness.
We survived.
So we're moving on to our favorite picks of the year. And the award is a gigantic film canister of 16mm film.
Are we jumping on to my number one pick of the year? Well, I can actually visually even show you what it is. It is Blade Runner 2049. Again, this comes down to it being the most immersive film-going experience for me this year. It was just a visual feast. I love the way this movie looks. I love the attention to detail. Denis Villeneuve has had, in the last 5 years, he's been on my Best Picture list and Best Director list 4 out of 5 years, and the only year he missed was because he didn't put a film out that year. He is the new masterclass of filmmaking.
He's doing one every year. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm just so impressed with what he's been doing. He's crossed all kinds of genres and done all kinds of different films in that time period. All really cool movies, really interesting, with great casts, great visuals, great stories for each one of them. This movie was really thought-provoking. I really enjoyed the way that he plays with different themes in the movie, specifically the baseline test and how it talks about trying to get these AI, I don't know, this is just something that we see happen with one character. The words that he has to repeat, interlinked, cells, and distinct, those are the 3 words he constantly has to keep repeating. And those all play out in terms of theme in the film in certain ways. You see the interlinked fingers of during the sex scene. That's just an amazing scene, and the way that they work the theme into that. The humans have become kind of this robotic type of people, lacking a lot of emotion, and the AI characters, which there's many in the film, are all striving to be human. And so you really see that come through in the performances. I think there's a number of times where you can see that they are still an AI character, like it establishes that they have kind of a little bit of lack of emotion and roboticness to their performance, but also that strive to be human and the desires and the passion. You can see every character that's AI has, going back to that theme, distinct. They have ways that they're trying to make their life distinct and their own, and they all have distinct passions and things. I mean, even like Batista's character mentioning that he likes to eat garlic. It's just setting up that these characters are distinct and not just an assembly line robot. And
they're naive in the sense that they're a new species that's coming to form, and they're grabbing at things like, I don't know why. What is that? Why am I feeling this sensation?
Yeah, and it's something that I think the humans in this world of 2049 are lacking and kind of have lost.
Because their job is to sit there and keep everything in order, and they don't really have purpose other than that, or leisure.
So I think it improves on the original. I think it's a great sequel to an already interesting film, but it just expands that universe in a way that's fascinating. It actually has a plot which the original is kind of lacking. Just really cool aspects to this film. I think It's the camera work is just perfect. It's meticulously done. The attention to detail. There's just a certain elegance to the way this movie is shot, I think. And I love the world that it takes place in. The world of 2049 seems like it's definitely a real future for the original film, taking place, I think, in 2018 or 2019 or something.
Yeah.
This does seem like where the world has gone in that time span. It didn't push it too far away from what we knew. It just all feels really believable. There's a lot of technology displayed in the film that seems realistic, that could get invented someday or whatever. A lot of what the original had things that are now have become invented. And so I think this shows things that, could be a future we're actually headed towards to some degree. Maybe not the replicants. We're not very close to having that. But it's just a really fascinating movie. It works on all technical levels, and it was super thought-provoking. And like every film this year, I have flaws with it. There are things. It's definitely a long movie. There's slow segments in the film. But I really appreciate Denis Villeneuve and his work. I think it's kind of like a fan of Michael Jordan who loves basketball, who says Michael Jordan's the best player, and then LeBron comes around, and it's like you have to show respect to these new guys who are just as good as the best of all time. And Denis Villeneuve has earned that right to be considered a masterclass filmmaker. He's right up there with anybody who's ever been making movies, in my opinion.
Especially when the Michael Jordans are now making The Post.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I really love about Cinema Gulp, and Ben, thank you, Ben, for coming up with the idea of us doing this. We're going on to our third year now, right?
Sure.
And this gives me an opportunity to show the respect to filmmakers that I love. My Michael Jordan, because I like sports, but my heroes, the guys that I love, that I wish I could be wearing their number on my back, are filmmakers. And Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorites. So
cheers to that.
I'm really happy to be able to show him a lot of respect, and also finally see him actually win Best Picture of the Year. Of those four films that he's had, he's always missed the top spot slightly. Arrival came in second for me last year. He's finally winning the Best Picture spot for me. But he's always had a good chance of winning Best Director. He did last year for me for Arrival as well. So just a knockout film, a great sequel.
Yeah, well said, man. Denis Villeneuve is definitely one of the best in the business for sure.
Let's hear it, Ben.
Blade Runner 2049 has won the 16mm film canister. What else won that award? Another filmmaker who belongs in that discussion, maybe after one or two more films, but someone who in 2008 had possibly my favorite film of the year until a little movie called The Dark Knight came around. It kind of just overtook everything. But this is Martin McDonagh doing 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, which I think earlier in the year John called 3 Men Inside Kevin Spacey, which is a much better title.
3 Men Inside Kevin Spacey?
He's one of my favorite writer, director, visionaries working today, because he's slowly moving up the ranks. He hasn't done, in 10 years, he's done 3 films. I guess that's about average, but in Seven Psychopaths is his second effort, not as good as In Bruges, not as good as 3 Billboards in my opinion. But that guy is establishing his own Tarantino verse, where he's utilizing certain actors and bringing them back in other roles for completely different reasons. He pretty much dug Colin Farrell out of the dirt. This is what I said in our review, his most mature effort. I loved this film. It's my favorite 2 performances of the year, Frances McDormand and Sam Rockwell. Aside from all the amazing performances, this is one of those films where, and we talked about this a lot, you never know where it's going, and that's the strong point of storytelling, is like, where is it going to go? Every facet of filmmaking in this movie is why I love filmmaking. I think you and I both agree with that. Not everything has to be aesthetically, visually beautiful. It has to be competent, and you have to know there's a good DP behind the camera. But at the same time, if the storytelling is so strong and that's what envelops you, then it's not necessarily like, oh, look how beautiful that sunset is, or look how beautiful how well lit that shot is. The storytelling and the characters are what get you, and that's the focus of McDonagh's entire movie here, and that's what he wanted you to see. Not bad visually. It's perfect. It's exactly what it needs to be. It's surface level stuff, not a lot of sweeping shots. You don't really need that stuff. The thing about this film is the tone shifts. Every character, the actions that they make change the course of the film. And that's another part of storytelling that's so deep. If you're going to write a script or a novel or something, you got to pay attention to everything and every little detail that's happening. And he did that within Bruges, and he did that in Seven Psychopaths as well. Both of them have, all three of his films have a tonal shift based on what's going on in the story from an action of a character or several characters. And when you do that, as a viewer, you're on your toes the whole time, just wondering, where is this going? What's going to happen? The side characters in this movie, they've got motivations. They've got things that they do. They have purpose. They have monologues in this movie, and arcs, and things to say. They're not just there as like further set pieces. Like, there's side characters that have 2 or 3 scenes that actually matter to the overall story of the movie. One of the things, John, like you were talking about what 2049 did to you, but I always wanted to write gritty ensemble pieces with dark comedy and a little bit of mystery and just a real edge to them. I know I'm sounding like a Tarantino wannabe, but no, not all of it has to be that way. But just like stories that have like a lot of fear and driving force and that kind of stuff. And that's what this movie does. So when I see it, I'm so proud and I'm so happy to see filmmaking still doing this kind of work, because our 2 favorite picks are very, very different from each other in the sense that one is a grand kind of sweeping science fiction movie, but they're but it's the same thing, because they're both filmmakers doing the craft the way that they learned how to do it, and watching them mature as filmmakers. Because, you know, Villeneuve has had best movies for the past couple of years in his last 3 or 4 films. I could say the same thing for McDonough. For me, maybe Seven Psychopaths, I liked it, but it didn't fall into like my favorite of that year. But I think he's just getting better as a filmmaker. And seeing true craft in both your movie and my movie makes me happy to be sitting in the theater. And when I'm watching something like 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, I feel happy that filmmaking and film itself is my pastime. It's my favorite thing. You'd said about Michael Jordan, you wish you could wear a jersey. I could not have said it better myself. That's amazing. And that's the stuff that matters to us and when you're watching cinema. So 3 Billboards is my favorite movie of 2017. I was so happy watching this movie, watching the spirit of filmmaking alive and well. McDonough did it. Keep making those good movies. Both our directors are 2 of the best working today, I think, in our #1 picks. So
all of our choices were pretty good this year.
Yeah, I like 2017.
I wasn't blown away, but, you know, there's still good choices. So please let us know what you guys think is your favorite movies of the year. We'd really love to hear your top picks, however many you want to let us know about. Maybe some of your worst picks. Did we miss out on some real stinkers that we need to check out just to know how terrible they really are?
Yeah.
But mainly want to know about what you loved this year. We want to know what our audience thinks and what they like.
Yeah, chime in, please, because we want to see a bunch of best of and worst of lists, because... you know, we're just 2 people. You know, we're opinionated, and film is subjective. I'd love to see what other people say. And I really want to know if someone liked Wish Upon. I want to know if there's someone out there that actually likes Wish Upon.
Or if 50 Shades of Grey is your favorite trilogy ever.
Please subscribe and click like for us. Cinema Gulp today. We're hoping for a good 2018. So
check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Cinema Gulp.
Until next time, I'm Ben.
And I'm John.
We drink your cinema.
You're empty, man.
Ah, shit.
I drink it up!